Pluto-Saturn can be like tremendous reserves of energy and resilience to carry a world historic destiny, to carry this huge burden on one's shoulders. Pluto's the power, the titanic empowerment. Saturn is the weight, the burden. So the idea with astrology, and this is to quote Richard Tarnas, is that it's archetypally predictive. It's not concretely predictive. You can't know concretely by looking at a chart what you're like, what your life is like, what's going to happen. That's not the idea. Astrology illuminates the archetypes. You can map on the Jungian archetypes, or the gods and goddesses of myth, to the planets. So the shadow is connected to Saturn. Shadow is to do with one's inferior traits and things we find embarrassing or we feel guilty about. That is Saturn in astrology. Pluto is to do with the rebirth archetype. Jung discusses the rebirth archetype, and also Dionysian empowerment, empowerment by the instincts. That is Pluto. Or Neptune is to do with the archetype of the spirit in Jungian language. Or the moon is connected to the anima and the mother and the child. All three Jungian archetypes are to do with the moon. So the idea is that astrology can be used at this archetypal level, and what it can give you then is an archetypal map of your experience, your personality, and that, I argue in here, in this book, can be used to individualize the monomyth. So you can have the sense of like going through this process of awakening and crossing the threshold and the underworld descent and returning to the surface and going through the opposites, and that process going on and on. But then the astrology can give you the specifics. What is happening during these 2 or 3 years? What's happening then? And my idea is that, and this is going to be the topic of a future book, is that you can bring these two together in quite a creative way. So this book really then is the theory. I make that argument that I've just outlined to you now, but it's to do with the synthesis of Jung and the new sciences. And I argue that we think of myth, we think of archetypes as being to do with the inner world. Campbell said that myths are products of the psyche and they pertain to the psyche. And I agree with that, but it depends what you understand by psyche. Is the psyche just inside us? Is it our inner world? Or is it the inside of everything? Is it the interiority of nature, the interiority of the universe? And that's what I argue here, that the psyche should not be understood as a wholly personal individual psyche, even if there's a collective unconscious, but that the collective unconscious, the deeper psyches, and somehow part of a single reality with the external universe, that it's all one world. It's the unus mundus, is the term that the Hermetic philosophers use, the unus mundus. It's a single undivided reality. And we tend to think that inner and outer are quite separate. This is a consequence of the Cartesian René Descartes split between mind and matter, subject and object. But I think at a deeper level, inner and outer are part of this single reality. And that is how astrology derives its validity, because the depths of the psyche and the depths of the order of the universe ultimately come out of the same ground, I think. They come out of the same dynamic ground, is the term I use in here, or the underlying dimension of reality. And archetypes in their deepest nature are rooted in this underlying dimension. It's a complicated argument, but that is the view that I try to present here. What this means for myth, I think, is that we shouldn't think of myth as being wholly to do just with psychology, because if you've got two planets in alignment at a certain period of time, that's to do with certain mythic archetypal themes, then it shows that myth is part and parcel of reality as a whole. That it's not just psychological, but at an archetypal level, myth is pervading everything, that it's structuring and shaping our experience of reality year by year. So that's the idea I present here. So I'm going to open it to you if you've got any questions. How are we doing for time?
Perfect. We got like
5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
I know it's a lot to take in.